we move forward with the continuing resolution to defund Obamacare that can succeed, I'll be for that. Up to this date, I have not seen a strategy that will allow us to do that. Again, what happens if the Senate doesn't pass a continuing resolution and we shut the government down, 85% of Obamacare will move forward. To me, it's not a strategy, it's just a small piece of it. And it will move forward because it's mandatory spending. Again, we've got to figure out a way to do this that we can, and I think that I mentioned earlier, a couple of votes we've taken, we get more and more Democrat support to stop this thing. I think one thing you see out there with the labor unions, and I've been predicting this for the past year and a half, 2 years, the labor unions, the rank and file, know that their leadership sold down the river. They know it. I've been in union halls and I've been in UPS facilities. The union membership know what their leadership did to them. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. That's why you have Rich Trumka from the AFL-CIO saying, oh, we need a waiver. Now, if he gives them a waiver, it's going to play right into the American people, because there's only about 11.5%, 11, 12% of the American workers that are in unions. That means the other 88, 89% are not in unions. So if he gives them a waiver, we're going to have a mass uprising of the working Americans saying, and that's what the House has already said, if you're going to give a waiver to business, then give a waiver to the individual. And so I think if the unions get their way, this country is going to be turned upside down. There's going to be so much pressure on my Democratic colleagues in the House and the Senate to do what we're trying to achieve, and that's to stop this thing, that I think there's a potential for that to happen. But this thing is starting to collapse under its own weight.
Thank you.
Congressman, I briefly just want to go back to Charlie's question earlier about raising the debt ceiling. And also, we learned earlier this year about the IRS targeting the Tea Party and other conservative groups while giving liberal groups a pass. You react to that sometimes?
Well,
what's being done to keep that from happening?
Sure. Well, absolutely, it's wrong to do that. I introduced a bill that would stop the IRS from being involved with, if Obamacare moves forward, with allowing them to have access to our medical records. I don't want the IRS to have access to my medical records. It's bad enough they have access to my taxes. But what we saw out there was absolutely wrong, un-American, for the IRS to target groups that this president, that this administration disagrees with. And what we're doing now is going through hearings. We need to get that Lois Lerner, I believe is her name, get her back in front of the committee. And quite frankly, I'd be willing to give her immunity if she comes before and tells us who in the administration gave her the orders or gave her the wink and the nod to do what she did. And it's absolutely un-American and unwanted.
I would like to say that I know Lois Konishiki of the Blair County Republican Women would like to ask an important question of you about the Common Core. Senator Grassley has a letter to defund the Department of Education's attempt to take over education curriculum or education standards in the country through the Common Core. And the Republican National Committee came out with a resolution against the Common Core standards. I think most of us here would just like to see the federal government completely out of education altogether so that we can run our own schools.
I certainly support what Senator Grassley is trying to do. In my 10 years, 12 years actually in Congress, I stood up and said many, many times, it is not the role of the federal government to dictate to our states and locales how we educate our children. It's up to us here locally to do that. The Department of Education, if I had a book tomorrow and the funding was significantly cut funding, I would do it. It's the states that should do it. It's the locales that should do it. What happens in Utah, what happens in Pennsylvania, and the other states, it's very different. And we need to ensure that our citizens are controlling education. I have a daughter that's an educator, and I hear them all the time. She was teaching kids with autism, and the federal mandates that come down on her, the paperwork she has to do, stops her from doing the job she needs to be doing, working closely with those kids, filling out paper and the form. So again, the federal government needs to get out of the business of dictating the state's education. I know, when I talk to school board members, folks run for the school board and they get on there and they realize they can only have an effect on about 20 or 25% of the budget because of the mandates that come down from the federal government. So again, the federal government needs to get out, and I fully support that and have been my entire time in Congress.
Thank you. And I'll take another question from the audience, and Henry.
Hi, my name is Wanda Hall. I'm a former sergeant in the United States Army. And my question to you is, I would like to know what you're personally doing to get answers on Benghazi. Because we had an ambassador killed, and our Marines were killed, and Hillary Clinton, what does it matter now? But over in Syria, where they're gassing one another, that somehow, is an act of war.
Sure. Well, being on the Armed Services Committee, certainly through briefings and hearings, mainly through a lot of briefings we've had, we've been able to ask those tough questions to get to the bottom of this. But really the focus of the Congress has been on our Committee on Foreign Relations and on oversight. They're the real investigative bodies that oversee this. And working with my colleagues on those committees, making sure that answers are given, because it is, what happened there is a tragedy. Somehow, early on, we knew there were problems in Libya and Benghazi, and we turned a blind eye to it. I see that Secretary Clinton, she gets a free ride. If it would have been a Republican administration, the media drives a lot of this, let's face it. We've got 5 electronic outlets out there, television, and 4 of them give this administration and Secretary Clinton a free ride. In fact, I understand 1 or 2 of them are going to do a story on Hillary Clinton. I'm sure it's going to be a glowing story about how brilliant she is, and it won't mention a bit about her terrible failure in Benghazi, because she knew there was a crisis. So we need to keep pushing this issue.
So considering the current climate in Washington right now, what are the chances of actually holding somebody accountable? Because I know it's easy to say we're going to, but until it actually happens.
The House is working very hard to hold them accountable. If the media gets on board, it forces the Senate, because in Washington, you've really got to have both bodies pounding away. Now, the Senate's done some hearings. I haven't completely watched all they've done. I know that a few of the senators over there, Democrats and Republicans, are asking tough questions. But we've got to continue to move forward. But again, the media in this country, if they start to pound on an issue, if they did it to, let's take Roberto or Gonzalez, the AG for President Bush. The media beat on him every single day until he left. I don't know why they're not doing that to Eric Holder, because what Eric Holder's doing is absolutely wrong. What he's doing.